This podcast is brought to you by Mudwater.
Dave, Mudwater, I'm just now hearing about this stuff. I've got to know, is this how you get away with never drinking coffee?
Yeah, I've never had coffee really in my life. I tasted it, but it's never been my thing. I've always been more of a tea drinker. I like my green tea in the mornings, but I've been introduced to Mudwater recently, and it's changed up my whole morning routine. Mudwater is a coffee alternative with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms and Ayurvedic herbs. It has seventh of the caffeine of a cup of coffee, where you get the energy without the anxiety, the jitters, or the crash of the coffee. It's got some amazing ingredients in there too. You got cacao and chai for mood and microdose caffeine, lion's mane for alertness. You got some cordyceps to help support physical performance, chaga and reishi to support your immune system, turmeric for soreness, cinnamon for antioxidants. The stuff is just packed with amazing things that you need on a daily basis. And the taste is incredible. It tastes kind of like a spicy hot chocolate. It's awesome in the mornings. It really kind of just sets my day off right. I'm a big fan of all the ingredients in there. I love how it doesn't kind of kick me into too much gear. Coffee always gives me the jitters, and I really just appreciate something that kind of gives me a nice level feeling throughout the day in terms of that energy boost. I'm a huge fan of this stuff, and I'm so glad I was introduced to it.
Man, Dave, you've got me sold. I tell you what, with my 3 cups of caffeinated coffee a day and 3 cups of decaffeinated, I got to do something. So I'm going to give this a try.
I would do it. I would do it. Mudwater is Whole 30 approved. It's 100% USDA organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan. It's kosher as well. If you go to mudwater.com, that's MUDWTR.com to support the show, you can use the code PowerMonkey, all caps, for $5 off. Again, that's PowerMonkey, all caps, for $5 off. Go to mudwater.com, check out more. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Chad Vaughn. And on today's episode, we have 2 special guests, Jon Moreno and Meagan Burns, both from the Phoenix. Jon works as the program manager, and Meagan works as the sport brand partnership manager. The Phoenix is an incredible organization. Their mission is to build a sober, active community that fuels resilience and harnesses the transformational power of connection so that together we can rise, recover, and live. They're based in 28 states right now, 72 different cities. They have worked with a number of different people from various backgrounds to help them use fitness as another way towards recovery. It's an incredible organization. We were so happy to be able to speak with Jon and Meagan about what they have going on, what the organization is all about, and what the future looks like. We hope you guys enjoy this one. All right, we're very excited to have this episode. Jon, Meg, thanks so much for taking the time to be with me and Chad today. How are you both doing?
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Of
Yeah,
course.
Thanks.
I'm
Pleasure.
glad we were finally able to get this on the agenda. And first, just to pick it up, because I don't think a lot of our listeners know who you are and what the Phoenix is, what the organization is all about. Would one of you like to walk us through kind of a global view of what the Phoenix is, so we can kind of use that as a jumping off point?
Yeah, for sure. So the Phoenix has been around since 2006. And the short answer of what we are is we're a sober, active community. And what we do is we host all sorts of active programming. So CrossFit, yoga, meditation, walks, runs, for anyone for free. A minimum requirement to attending programming is that you have 48 hours of sobriety. So what we want to do with our programs, and we're a nationwide nonprofit, so we're in many locations across the country, is provide these really safe, inclusive, accessible, free spaces for folks that are in recovery from substance use to come and be a part of what we're doing and be a part of a larger community that's bigger than themselves, and obviously meet other folks that are in recovery. And this is also for, our program is also for supporters. So not necessarily only just folks in recovery, but most people that we talk to about the Phoenix have some sort of connection to somebody that's either suffered from substance use disorder, or they know someone that is struggling currently, whatever it may be, family member, friends. So we invite both people in recovery, but also supporters and allies of what we're doing to come together to kind of create this bigger movement, to allow us to really kind of dive into the problem that is the substance use disorder problem in our country right now.
I mean, it's such an amazing program. I'm curious, you said it started back in 2006. What was the impetus for that, and who started the program, and why fitness? Why was fitness used as the kind of coming together point?
Yeah, so Scott Strode is our founder, and he got sober in Boston, and really he used fitness, specifically climbing, ice climbing, to get sober. So he used other things like he was into boxing, outdoor activities, but it was really him and a group of other people that were trying to get sober that did it through this community kind of shared activity that they were able to come together and do and find, a bigger sense of self and something that they were pursuing that allowed them to kind of think about, okay, what could this be if we brought this to more people and more places across the country? So it started as a very small organization, and now it's just completely blown up. When, like I said, we're nationwide now and we're in locations all over the country.
Yeah, so I don't know, 72 cities now and 20 something states. I mean, the organization seems to have blown up in the past decade or so, which is amazing to see. But starting with ice climbing, that's quite a niche place to start, and then build into so many other. Is ice climbing still one of the offerings that you guys have on the agenda?
I think it depends on the area. I know that we had some outdoor climbing activities in Boston for a while, and then they certainly do it at our flagship location in Denver. Not sure how often they go ice climbing, but it was kind of founded on more of that outdoor activity, and then through that is how we found out about CrossFit. And obviously, there's a lot of similarities in terms of like bringing people together to work towards a shared kind of activity and having that community aspect. And when we say sober active community, we don't limit that to necessarily only fitness. It's just really anything where we're bringing people together and kind of embracing that community aspect.
Yeah, it seems like it's one of the great things that CrossFit does. And I'd like to talk about the little CrossFit partnership in a minute. But I think Chad and I and everybody with Power Monkey, is one of the things that we've gravitated towards so much is the fact that CrossFit has allowed for us to build such strong communities. Some of our closest friends, people we consider family, are all people that we work out with, and it's the people that we hang out with on our most regular basis. And through our own Power Monkey camp, it's something that we do twice a year, and we all say when we leave that, life is not quite the same when we're not at that place all together, kind of supporting each other. So it seems like it's a very similar mentality. You've created a situation where you've created a community where, sobriety is kind of the reason why people are there, but it extends much beyond that and kind of gives a family for people who are in need of that additional community. And CrossFit has been such a big part of that for so many people. I'm curious for you, Meg, what's your position with the organization, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so my position right now is I'm a sport brand partnership manager. So I also work for CrossFit. I've worked on the seminar staff for about 9 years now. So just after we deepened our partnership with CrossFit, it made sense for me to come on board the partnership team to help manage that vertical. I've been working for the organization for about 3 years, and actually found it through a friend of mine in Boston when Phoenix had a for-profit affiliate. So that was like, standard affiliate where you're having membership dues that would then go to the nonprofit. We ended up not continuing with that model, but I was fortunate enough to stay on with Phoenix that way and have been with them ever since.
Amazing. Very cool. And Jon, I want to jump to you. I want to get a little bit of a background on how you found the Phoenix and how it's impacted your life over the past few years.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so like Meg was saying, I am a person in recovery. In 2014, I walked into my first CrossFit gym, after struggling for years with substance abuse. And once I went into that first CrossFit class, it totally changed my life, my recovery. From there, I found purpose, and like you were saying, it's really about the power of connection and having that community, because I think so many times in early recovery, individuals don't really have that community because the community that they thought they had was, using and stuff like that. So it really changed my life, and I was just thinking about it earlier today, is like, I've started it every single day, 5 days a week, with a 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. CrossFit class, because that's what really helped me in my recovery journey. It's just that holistic feel, but that's how I really start my day off. in 2000, so I've been working for the Phoenix about the same time as Meg. Before coming on board, I was out in Massachusetts working at a residential treatment program for single fathers with kids and couples with kids as a case manager. And, had been doing CrossFit, and one of the members at my gym had sent me a job application or a job posting for the Phoenix. And I read it and I was like, oh man, this has to be the perfect opportunity to not only help people in recovery, but through fitness. So I applied for it, got the job as program coordinator for our Lowell location. So I started that partnership up in Lowell. And that was in partnership actually with the Middlesex Sheriff there. They donated half a building to host a Phoenix gym there. Really built that up. And then from there, I went out to Las Vegas, started a chapter out there. Now I'm back here in Phoenix where I grew up, and more of like a national position now, kind of like an activation launch manager.
Amazing. So you've had quite a few roles and different reasons for being a part of the organization. And how long have you been sober now?
Since September 13th of 2013. So
Amazing.
just over, 8 years? Yeah.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
incredible. And has been your participation in the Phoenix solely through CrossFit?
Yeah, CrossFit, and I've tried other modalities, but it's really just, having had kind of that Phoenix experience through the CrossFit community before I started the Phoenix, but working for the Phoenix and just seeing like that transformational power of connection that team members come in, like one story that I can, share real quick is we had a team member come in. She was probably 2 weeks out of detox, did her first CrossFit class, and she was laying on the floor after, crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope she's okay. And I'm like, hey, are you okay? And she was just crying. She said, I didn't know I could feel this good, without putting substances in my body from the workout. And I was like, I got all like goosebumps and stuff. And they're like, this is why I do what I do for the Phoenix, so it's just those moments of like, you're just like, you just see the power in that, the connection with, struggling through that workout. And then afterwards, everybody's high-fiving and stuff like that. But then those are, because I, the kind of moments that, keep me coming back and, doing what I do. And I love it.
Yeah. You guys have talked so much about community and connection, and looking at the website and the Instagram page and everything else, it's all over the place. And that seems to be basically what it's all about, or the power in what you guys are able to accomplish in helping a lot of people recover. So I'm curious, Jon, with you being in recovery, can you explain a little bit of what the difference is in someone, coming into a community like the Phoenix, and trying to get sober through a community, as opposed to going in on their own? Someone wakes up someday and they say, you know what, I want to get sober. So I'm going to, I live by myself. I'm just going to kind of stay to myself and try to make it happen that way. What is the difference from your perspective?
I think that, really, to touch on your question there, is that I think we all recover better together, right? So I think that for, and most of our instructors are people that are in recovery. But I think that knowing when they come through that door that we all have that kind of like shared past or journey. So I think it makes it a lot easier for them to keep coming back and building that community. Phoenix does a great job and supports all pathways to recovery. One of the things that we say is there's no one right way to recover. So whatever you're doing for your recovery and it's working, just add the Phoenix as another tool in your recovery tool belt. But, there's so many different pathways to recovery now. But one thing that they all have in common is that, is that community feel. Everybody does it better together. And I think that really is like with the Phoenix, is like, no matter if it's CrossFit, yoga, and necessarily you don't have to come into a CrossFit class and it's not like we're going to talk about, recovery or whatever it is. It's just going in there and knowing that it's a safe space, it's inclusive, and we're all just trying to, get better one workout at a time, one climb at a time, one yoga class at a time, something like that.
Nice. Absolutely. And is sobriety something that you ever tried to face on your own before finding CrossFit?
Yeah, certainly. So I was introduced to the 12-step, programs at an early age because my mom and stepdad were both alcoholics. And for some reason, I think I had this block of like, I don't want any part of that, so I had, small pieces of sobriety, throughout my years, but it never worked. But when I found CrossFit, I think that something about it that just gave me purpose. I never went, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the other 12-step programs, but it just didn't work for me. Is that when I found the community of CrossFit, it just totally, for the first time in my life, gave me purpose that I never had. So it was really just really transformed my life then.
Amazing. Yes. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The two things that CrossFit and Phoenix really have in common is any sort of stigma reduction. So when you go into a CrossFit gym, nobody asks, what is your background? Where do you come from? What's your job? It doesn't matter. We're just all working out together. And same thing at the Phoenix. So when folks come into class, we're not asking them how long have they been sober and what's their journey, unless they certainly want to share that. So very similar in a way that it's judgment free, and people can really feel safe in both environments. That's why they go so well hand in hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, purpose and inclusivity is the common thing with CrossFit, and being pretty close with the adaptive community through Power Monkey and everything. We see kind of the same thing there, and I'm sure you guys witnessed that as well. One of the other things that really sticks out to me that I'm very curious about, that again is all over your social media and your website, and you mentioned in the beginning, Meg, is about the 48 hours. So I'm curious as to where that specific number came from. And Jon, from your perspective, being in recovery, how difficult is that 48-hour requirement for some people to be able to accomplish?
Great question. I think that we settled on that 48 hours because I think it's pretty attainable, because I know, I'm just speaking for me, when I, if somebody asked me to put together like a week, come back in a week, that seemed like a year to me, or get 30 days and come back. I think 48 hours is pretty manageable for some people to kind of like clear their head and like come back. With that being said, we really focus on that 48 hours because, everybody's always welcome back. So if somebody has a, setback, something like that, 48 hours, I think is very doable, but also it protects other team members that are in there that, maybe don't want to be triggered by somebody that comes in. Maybe they're not, don't have that 48 hours. So if somebody does come in and, they may be under the influence, it's usually just having a private and respectful conversation, just saying like, you're welcome back, but let's, put this 48 hours together and you can come back at any time.
Awesome. And how often, you talk about 48 hours and someone initially getting in, but then, maybe they have to redo that 48 hours. How often does that happen where someone, is it something that they hold themselves to, or you guys recognize it and you help them make that decision? But how often does that happen and someone have to kind of restart?
It's all based on the honor system. We get that question. That's a great question. We get that all the time. It's like, how do you know that somebody has that 48 hours? Is that, it's really based on the honor system. But I think that having, very, good instructors and staff, we're able to kind of like pick up on that. And like I said, if somebody is, and one of the things about the Phoenix is, people have had setbacks and they feel comfortable enough to come back after they have that 48 hours. So it's really just, a safe place for them and a safe space, and they always feel welcome to come back after that.
And having, some of those conversations, I think, has helped me personally approach coaching in a different way, outside of just at the Phoenix, at, a regular affiliate or at seminars, because the way that we're approaching those conversations is in a very gentle, kind, accepting way that, I know when I first started coaching and somebody would show up late, it would super irritate me, and I would have a different response. Then after working at the Phoenix, it's like, okay, we actually don't know what everybody in this affiliate is going through and what their background is. And especially at seminars, when my role is introduced, I'll have at least 3 to 5 people come up and say like, hey, I'm actually in recovery too, they likely wouldn't have even said that if my role hadn't come up in the introductions. So just kind of taking that same approach, and what I've learned from folks at the Phoenix and bringing that to the affiliate and into my coaching style, I think has drastically changed and improved my coaching abilities.
I love that point. I think it's so important just for coaching in general, like you mentioned, not just for this specific case, but I noticed that for myself too, having come from a world of coaching elite athletes, and the expectations with elite athletes is that you be here on time. This is your job. You're expected to be here when the clock hits a certain time so that we can get everything done. But the reality is that general population are there. They want that hour, that time in the gym to be the best time of their day, where they can shut off from whatever else is going on in the world and connect with the community. And the expectations are slightly different. So I had to change my coaching perspective too, from what I was used to understanding that, we can't add or complicate the time in the gym. There should be a sanctuary. If they show up a couple minutes late, let it go, let it be. Who knows the reason for it? They're not here to become professional athletes. And it really helps kind of create some perspective around, okay, while they're here, let's make the most of that particular time.
Yep, absolutely.
So you did mention a little bit about a partnership that has been created with CrossFit, and I'm curious about what that is and what that means and what the merging of the two organizations actually looks like.
Yeah, so we've been doing CrossFit as an organization for many years beyond this partnership, but we recently had the opportunity to deepen the partnership with CrossFit after Eric Rosa came on as CEO, and in his discussions of making the sport a more inclusive and accessible space for people. And what that looks like for us coming together with them is having these 2 brick and mortar facilities, which are Phoenix locations in Boston and Denver. They're now deemed or named CrossFit community centers. And what that means is that we're basically opening our doors to other nonprofits in the area to come in and host programming. So a lot of the folks that are coming in now have the opportunity to do these classes, Adaptive Training Academy being one, that they don't have a brick and mortar location in some of these areas. And now we can open up the doors to our facility to allow more people to come in and have these sort of co-branded classes. We're working on one with Out Foundation and one with Battle Cancer, where we can really come together and have both folks coming in from Phoenix and these organizations and creating even bigger community and being almost sort of these nonprofit hubs. At the games, we had an opportunity to do a really big nonprofit workout where all the nonprofits came together. They all talked about their organizations. We all worked out together. And it was a massive workout. And really that hasn't been done. It's kind of, all these organizations are a little bit siloed off and doing what, working on what their mission is. But we find that, maybe we can bring everybody together in a shared space at these CrossFit community centers to create an even bigger impact.
And where are these first locations put together? You mentioned some initial hubs.
Yeah, so our 2 brick and mortar locations are kind of like our flagship locations, one in Boston and one in Denver. And those are the 2 that are the CrossFit community centers. So we have a couple more brick and mortars around the country, but the rest of our locations are all remote locations or volunteer led, meaning that we are leveraging folks that have spaces, brick and mortar spaces, to be able to do our programming out of these spaces. So Phoenix itself as a nonprofit does not have brick and mortars all over the country, but we're able to partner up with affiliate owners that are willing to host our programming to get our classes into more cities and more states across the country. Same thing with yoga studios and other, fitness domains. But that's one of our big kind of initiatives in creating more awareness around these community centers, is partnering up with these affiliates all over the country.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. And I'm curious, with these people that are jumping on board, affiliate owners or just gyms in general, what's that process like? Is it someone that's familiar with the Phoenix that maybe is in recovery and going through the process themselves and sees this as a necessary component to the community around them, or it was a benefit to them? How do people find Phoenix and become part of that network of affiliates?
Yeah, so they can find it in a couple of different ways. So we do have some affiliate owners that host our programming that are in recovery themselves. And that's obviously our mission is something that they feel super connected to and they're passionate about. We also have affiliate owners who maybe have a loved one or family member or just simply want to support what we do. Maybe they're not in recovery themselves. And for our locations that actually have boots on the ground in terms of our staff, we either have a Phoenix staff go in and coach or a volunteer in the area. But, our goal is to serve 1 million people. So in order to do that, we can't have staff necessarily in every city, in every state. So a lot of our programming now relies on volunteer-led chapters. So that would be, affiliate owners that are just hearing about us, maybe at the CrossFit Games or through social media or things like this. When we're on podcasts and they reach out to us and say, "Hey, we want to get involved," and that's when they can go through a volunteer process that we have to be able to start hosting Phoenix programming. And that can look a little bit different for every location, whether they have a coach that they can provide, whether they just have the space that they can provide, really any way that the affiliate owner wants to get involved. We're able to kind of support them and make that happen to just obviously increase our impact around the country and eventually, going internationally as well, because we know substance use disorder isn't only in the US. And so that would be where we want to, kind of go to in the future.
That makes sense. And Jon, you seem like such a success story for the Phoenix Center, such a great example of what the program can really lead to. I'm curious how often it happens where someone who comes to the program falls in love with the community, finds it to be a way for them to become sober and recognize a new chapter of their lives, then contributes back to the Phoenix and becomes a part of it later down the road. Is that common, or are you kind of an outlier with regards to being able to actually now be on the other side of the organization?
Great question. So we have actually a lot of good volunteers that have started off as team members that have just, found, the same thing that I found, that the transformational power of that connection and that community. And what we do at the Phoenix too is, so if we have a dedicated, team member that's showing up all the time, and say like, "Hey, would you like to volunteer, maybe coach some classes?" If that's the route that they want to take and give back, we'll pay for them to get their L1. If they want to, if outdoor stuff is their thing and, they want to like lead hikes and do some outdoor stuff, we'll pay for them to get their wilderness first responder or their wilderness first aid. If it's yoga instruction, anything like that. And then, we've had several staff that started off as team members as well, moved into like a volunteer position and eventually became staff members. So we have, we definitely have a lot of that within the organization as well.
Mm-hmm. And from your side of things, Meg, what drew you to the Phoenix? What, coming from the L1 side, the CrossFit coaching side of things, what was it about the Phoenix that said this is something I want to be a part of?
Yeah, so when I got involved, like I said, it was really just because it was an affiliate and there was a head coach position. I didn't know too much about the organization, a little bit different approach than when Jon found the organization. But I think it helps to have folks that are on our team that are both, yes, in recovery, but also supporters of what our mission is, because it helps reduce stigma as a whole. So once I was able to come on with the organization after we decided to dissolve that affiliate or for-profit affiliate, I learned so much from people hearing their stories, how they spoke to other folks, how to have more knowledge around being trauma informed when I'm coaching. We do a lot of trainings. Our volunteer training is all based on, being more accessible and inclusive to folks and keeping that trauma informed approach like in the back of your mind at all times. So oftentimes when I tell people I work for Phoenix or I tell them what the organization is, they only think it's for people in recovery, and it's really not, because in order to change the mindset about folks in recovery and people that are experiencing homelessness and all this stuff that's going on in our world right now, is like we have to all come together, and everybody everywhere likely has some sort of connection to substance use, whether they know somebody or they have a connection to a friend or whatever it may be, that we can get them to come into a class and then they instantly feel like, okay, wow, from me even just being here, I feel so connected to this community, whether I'm in recovery or not. So we really want to be open to to everyone, as long as obviously they have the 48 hours of sobriety, so we can reduce that stigma as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's something you brought up earlier that I think could be expanded upon, the idea of the support system, right? You mentioned that the support system is also available. It's the gym membership, and it's available to them as well. How much of the percentage of the people that come through the system are support system rather than in recovery themselves? And what is that process? Does it have to be someone who's actually in the program? Can they just jump in, like you mentioned, if it's something that they care passionately about? Can you talk a little bit about that support system as well?
Yeah. So how our programs run is, in any location, we'll take Boston, for example, we have a schedule that's online that shows all of our class schedules. And in order to come to that class, you sign up for class and you agree to what we have called our community standards, which in there is, we want to maintain that 48 hours of sobriety. We want to make sure that we use safe and supportive language. So no cursing, nothing that could be conceived as racist, homophobic, sexist. A couple more community standards that just keep the space safe. And we don't ask folks when they come in the door, like whether they are in recovery or not. So I would say majority of the folks that are coming are in recovery. But since we don't necessarily ask folks to kind of deem themselves a supporter or in recovery, it helps to, again, reduce that stigma, and that allows for more supporters to come in and feel safe versus like, I don't know if this is for me. And that's a lot of times what the education piece around Phoenix is like, hey, we have this class schedule that anybody can come to as long as they have the 48 hours sobriety. And through that, we've even had folks that, had that 48 hours because they just wanted to check us out. And they were actually considering going through the path of finding sobriety and achieving sobriety, and decided to go down that path after they found Phoenix. So without that, they may not have chosen that direction. So people find us a bunch of different ways. And now that we're also virtually running programming, about 50 classes a week, it makes it even more accessible for folks that don't have Phoenix as an in-person location in their city or state.
Yeah, that was actually my next question with regards to, you being in the number of states, the number of cities that you're in. Can you talk a little bit about the virtual stuff? You said you're running 50 virtual classes. How is that accessible? How do people who are not in a city where they have a brick and mortar location, how do they find you guys, and how can they work with you guys if they're not able to in person right now?
Yep. Yeah, so all of our classes are, if you head to thephoenix.org, they're all listed on there depending on your zip code for in-person. And then virtually, you can find our classes listed there on our virtual calendar. And that ranges anything from fitness, CrossFit, meditation, yoga. We have guest speakers, art activities, so on and so forth that people can join in. And again, they kind of go through the same process of they sign up to be what we call a team member, and that's them agreeing to the community standards and signing the team member agreement. And then they're automatically pulled into our community. So while they're not ever maybe meeting a Phoenix staff in person, they're still a part of our community and feeling that connection. And that's how we've actually been able to reach people internationally. So we've reached quite a few people internationally that had never heard about us, that saw us on our commercial that we had at the games and things like that are like, wow, I've just been looking for the right community to join of like-minded individuals. And this is something that I didn't even know exists, which happens all the time. And allows them to find things like CrossFit. Maybe they end up joining their local affiliate down the road, or local yoga studio or whatever it is. So it really kind of opens the doors to, like Jon said, we support all pathways to recovery. So it's a very open, safe environment that folks can just come take class. And there's not a ton of sharing or diving deep or anything like that, unless certainly folks want to chat a little bit more offline. And it's more focused on the community and the fitness piece or the activity.
That's amazing. I mean, you guys are doing so many incredible things, a lot of positive stuff, a lot of positive talk going on here. But I'm always curious from anyone in any position that's, whatever they're doing in life, is there anything in particular and this question is for both of you guys, and Jon, we'll start with you. Is there anything about your position in your job and your affiliation with the Phoenix that is particularly tough or you wish was different?
Good question. I honestly, when I think, about what I do, it's really like, and I tell people all the time, I love my job so much, and it's not even like working, so like when you're passionate about it, it's not, you always hear grown-ups like, when you find a job you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life, right? And I honestly feel like that I have that now, just to, because I know that what it's done for me, and just the ability to get out there and like build these communities and bring people into that. And like, kind of touching on what Meg was saying earlier too, is like, we've also seen people come to the Phoenix that just choose to live a sober life. They may not even had a substance use or alcohol problem, and they just, choose to live a sober life, and they've participated and come and they become members of it. Or we've had people that have become part of the gym that rather donate, I don't know, $150 a month to the Phoenix to be a member there than, because it's going back into the Phoenix community and stuff like that. So, I love what I do. I've never, sometimes it's tough. Maybe I think the toughest part of the job could be is like, when you build these relationships with team members and you see the change, and, maybe they happen to go back out there, right? And youth, and we've had some people that have passed away and stuff like that. I would say that's probably the biggest, problems, or the, some of the sadder times that I've had. But other than that, I love what I do, and it's like not even working.
Right.
Yeah. The more we can share about this to, just specifically speaking to the CrossFit community, folks, coaches in the community, and affiliate owners, the better, because I just want everybody to be able to experience the amazingness that happens at the Phoenix. I mean, I've gotten so much experience coaching so many different types of people from different backgrounds. We have folks come in that are living on the streets that have never even, attempted to work out. And now they're coming to our classes, and we have the opportunity to take them through their very first CrossFit workout, teach them how to do a squat, whatever that looks like for them for the day, and make a huge impact in their life. And, we have the ability to do this in so many other places around the country, around the world, with this movement that Phoenix is really creating, that, it's just a blessing to be able to share it with more folks. And just like CrossFit, trying to get people to come into the class and see what we actually do, because it is sometimes hard for people to understand, okay, so what exactly are you guys doing, and who is this for? And so I'm a supporter, but I'm not sober. Can I come? It can be a little bit confusing. So getting folks to just come in the door, come to a virtual class, come to a Phoenix class, is really the best way, just like introducing someone to CrossFit, so they can really feel that, and, really feel the emotion that is behind a lot of these folks coming in, that it is very regular that we have folks just kind of share about their story. You're talking to somebody after class, and it's unreal, some of the stories that you'll hear. Even, I know John, you're keeping your story short, but John's story is just like amazing, as with many of other staff that we have at Phoenix. And to be a workplace where, we accept folks that maybe have a history and a past, versus, okay, we have to look at, your background, and does that make you, is that going to affect you in doing your job today? It's like, we don't look at any of that stuff. And because of that, we're able to have jobs for so many people that maybe wouldn't have been able to find jobs elsewhere, because they have that stigma placed on them, or that judgment, that we just completely wipe out the door for us at Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that we basically just glossed over John's story. It was very, very short, and I was going to bring that up. I wanted to see if we could maybe dig into that a little bit more. And I'm curious, John, when did your struggles really start for you, and kind of take it from there?
I think it started, from a, early age. I experienced abuse growing up. My were divorced very early, a lot of early childhood trauma, which led to other things. But it was like, I would say that the first time that I ever really experienced any kind of like alcohol or drugs, probably like, I don't know, 12 or 13. But having gone through all that trauma as a kid, definitely, left some, black holes. And when you don't, when you miss those opportunities growing up, it starts to show in other areas as you get older, which led to, my substance abuse issue, some criminal behavior. But it was really like, I had to go through all that, but when I got out, kind of touching on the CrossFit and the community, it gave me purpose, and it gave me, that, example that I'll use that we see all the time with our team members is like, we'll have a team member come in, and they'll PR a deadlift. Well, maybe that deadlift, PR gave them that self-confidence, because you see it transform into other areas of people's lives, is like, now they have that self-confidence to go out. Maybe it's like the next time they go to therapy and they, dealing with their therapist, they can start to tackle some of these barriers that have been holding them back, just from that self-confidence of working in the gym and stuff like that. But, for me, it was just, I don't, sometimes I feel like my story is not any different from a lot of others, but, I went to prison for about 16 years, and I got out in 2013. And like I said, I was able to finally find that purpose, but I had to really go back and do a lot of like, self-work on filling those gaps that I, happened growing up. But it was just really, like I was telling Meg the other day, CrossFit has been a big, CrossFit saved my life, the community, which gave me purpose to, help others. And, eventually it led to work here at the Phoenix. But, sometimes it's uncomfortable sometimes talking about my story, because I like to talk about like all the good things that CrossFit and stuff has helped me achieve. So, but yeah, I'm blessed to, do what I do today and help other people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, the success stories that you guys have been speaking about, and what really ultimately helps people. And you've talked so much about how CrossFit has helped you in community and everything else, but you also mentioned a couple times filling holes from your past. And, I'm sure that some of that had to be done before you found CrossFit or while you were doing CrossFit. And though it helped, is there anything else you can point to that helped you fill those holes? How does someone begin to do that? There's a lot of people, no doubt, like you said. I mean, there's so many stories out there of people that have been abused in many different ways, younger in life, and neglect, whatever that may look like. So from your perspective, beyond, being a part of a community and using CrossFit or whatever else it is that you're using, how do you begin to fill those holes?
I think for me personally, it was just, going to therapy and finding the right therapist to help me work through those processes, and being self-aware too, enough to know that like I have these, gaps that, I need to definitely work on, because, for me that, change does, it's not a outside in. Change happens, it has to happen from the inside out for me to become whole. So I think that it was, going back and like, forgiving my mom for, one of the things that happened when I was, about 8 or 9, is she left me and my brother home alone, and, the cops had to come get us, and, so that led to other things. But it's really just forgiving people and going back and really working through it with, my therapist, but being self-aware that you do like have some stuff that you need to work on. And once I, got to the point where it was okay to reach out and ask for help, I mean, that was another big thing for me. As soon as I was able to raise my hand and say like, I need help with this, and with whatever it is, like I saw my life begin to change for the better. So in a long answer for you, like it was just basically reaching out and asking for help from my, therapist, and finding a good support system. But, that's one of the big things today, is like, if I don't know anything, I just ask for help, because I've never done that before until, I got into recovery. So it's basically just, asking for help, and I found a good therapist, and I was able to dig deeper into those issues and really work on them to become who I am today.
Yeah,
and that's one thing that, sorry, Chad,
go ahead, Meg.
One thing that like Phoenix staff are so great at is when folks do find Phoenix any staff that is running programming is like beyond willing to help with anything that anyone needs. So whether it's providing more resources, whether it's putting them in touch with, you know, a therapist or a treatment center or whatever it may be. I mean, I've never seen a group of people go so far out of their way to do stuff outside of work hours to genuinely help people. So it's just such a great environment when folks do come in the door, because they're obviously coming for the class and the community and stuff, but they are able to find this person and these people that care about them more than maybe they've even had before. That someone, you know, like John, that can relate to different stories, like can be like, hey, I've been there, like, you know, this is what worked for me. Let me see if I can help you outside of the facility as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all part of, as you said, John, leading all of us to where we are, or to who we are today. And you said that there towards the end of what you just mentioned. And I'm always curious because we talk to a lot of people that have overcome a lot of different things, you know, loss of limb or um, PTSD, you know, a lot of different things that we've come across just through Power Monkey and everything else. And I'm always curious because me, for example, one, I've had, you know, a few things happen to me in my past when I was very young. But physically, one of the things is I was born with a club foot. And that means that my right leg's about half the size of my left. I have quite a bit of a mobility limitation on my right leg still to this day. But because it's something that I was ashamed of when I was very young, I had to overcome, and it has made me who I am. I think if I wasn't born with a club foot, I wouldn't have made it to the Olympics. I think it was that powerful for me. So it's something that I can say at this point in my life that I'm thankful for. And it's hard to say that I'm thankful for some of those other things, but I do realize that they helped shape me into who I am today. So on a level, I am thankful for that. So would you say that that's true for you as well, John? I mean, you said you went to prison for 16 years. You were, you know, abused when you were young. Of all the things that happened to you when you were young that were bad things, do you have a sense of thankful for what has happened, because now you're in a position to help a lot of people?
Oh yeah, definitely. I always like to say that, you know, my mess back then is now my message, right? I get to like help people that have walked similar paths. So I kind of turn that mess into my message now, and can help individuals that have walked similar paths, but like it's become like an asset now. It's like something, you know, before I'd be like ashamed to say, you know, that I was incarcerated or I lived this kind of life. And, you know, that going through all that made me a stronger person who I am today. So I kind of take that, and that's my message. And if I can bring hope to other individuals. So yeah, definitely. I have definitely turned it into an asset and something that, you know, like I'm proud of, you know, who I am today and the life that I've lived, because having to go through all that just made me a stronger person that I am today.
I would call it your
powerful, man.
Yeah, I would call it your superpower, and I can see that. And just sitting here looking at your face, the smile in your eyes. I mean, it's your superpower, and I think that kind of thing happens for anyone that struggles with anything and really comes out on the other side of. And maybe we don't ever completely overcome these things, but at least we're on enough of the other side where we are absolutely stronger for them.
So Meagan, Jon, just so you have some insight for our Power Monkey camp, Chad has taken on the role of leading our campfire stories that we do each night. And each night we bring someone forward, a former camper, a staff member, a coach, somebody who has a story that they want to tell. And we initially started out with a lot of coaches and staff that maybe Chad can touch on, I don't know, but it's slowly grown into people feeling so comfortable in that situation that people from campers have just come to us and said, we want to tell our story too. We feel more comfortable in the situation to be able to open up and to be able to tell a story about something that we were ashamed of or that we were trying to hide. And the community has allowed them to feel much more, not just included, but also feel open enough to say, this is who I am because of those things, not in spite of those things. And I think it's such an extension. The Phoenix has turned the organization, it seems so much like what we do at our campfire stories, into every day in and out. You're able to get the most out of people, to be able to say, hey, we've all gone through something challenging in our lives. How can we become better because of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think even our Scott Schroeder, our founder, said one time, like, I think that, he says, everybody's kind of recovering from something, right? We all have stuff that
Right.
we're recovering from. I think that's another thing that makes, Phoenix great too, is that community of, we're all recovering from something, so.
Mhm. And there's always going to be someone, even at just the campfire, where there's, anywhere from 20 to, I don't know, maybe there's been up to about 50 people out there at once. I'm not sure, Dave, but anywhere from 20 to 50 people sitting out there. And there's always at least one person, if not five, that are listening to whatever story is being told, and they needed to hear that. And that's one of the things that makes
Yep.
them comfortable to come speak up. And I know that someone is going to be listening to this episode that needs to hear it. Probably many people that need to hear it. And it's so good that you guys are here and available to available and ready to help anyone that comes forward. So can we actually talk about that, because we're heading towards the end? Say someone does hear this, or they hear about the Phoenix in some other way. How do they get involved? How do they get help?
Yeah. So for anyone that wants to get involved in just programs around the country, whether it be in person or virtually, you can just head to our website or social media. So thephoenix.org, on Instagram, we're at Rise, Recover, Live, to get more information about classes. And virtually, it's super easy to just log on whenever, as long as you have the 48 hours of continuous sobriety. And then for those that are maybe interested in volunteering or helping out with what we do, you can definitely shoot me an email, mburns@thephoenix.org, or again, go to our website. We have our volunteer portal that is accessible for anybody that wants to sign up to volunteer. And that goes for affiliate owners that are looking to maybe open their doors or find out more about what we do to be able to host Phoenix programs, so we can really create this movement and continue to do that within the CrossFit community.
Amazing. Last thing for me is, so you guys are coming to camp, right? We got to get Jon out there
Oh,
at the
we got it.
campfire.
We got to get you
Yeah.
out at some point.
Yeah,
That
when's
would
the
be
next camp?
amazing.
I'm there.
First week of May 1st through the 7th, out in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. You guys would love it. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
So
Love that.
yeah, we're coming up to our 17th camp. We've been doing it for a number of years now, coming up to almost our 10th year. So we've been rolling these for a while now. So hopefully we can get.
How long have you guys been doing the campfire chats? And that was something you came up with, Chad?
Yeah, that was Chad's baby.
Yeah, I think it started maybe, I don't know, somewhere around 3 or 4 camps in. I can't even remember now.
Yeah,
We
right around
we
there.
always did the campfire, but it was just an opportunity for me, initially for me, to tell my story, because the way that it started was one of our other weightlifting coaches, Mike Service, who's of course a big part of Power Monkey and is an employee and everything else. All the athletes would come up to him and ask what was wrong with my legs, and they would be like, is it because he jerks with that foot going back or forward or whatever, and so his left calf has grown so much bigger and stronger? And so no, that's not what it was about. But so they would all come to him, and he would end up telling everyone my story. So it was like, dude, you got to set that straight for me, so I don't have to spend all this time answering this question for you. So the only place that I could really fit it in or put it was at the campfire, and that's kind of how it all started.
And everyone was too intimidated to ask Chad himself, because it's a very intimidating factor. So Mike was the one that everybody would go to asking the questions.
Yeah, Mike is the nice one, the more approachable one. And yeah, I've learned through Power Monkey, for whatever reason, that not only me, but Dave apparently is very, very intimidating as well. So
yeah. Hopefully the podcast and being in person with people change their minds, but still people go to Mike before they come to us. That's true. Yeah. But hopefully we can get you there. It's an amazing place. So before we get you off, a couple things I want to ask, quick questions. We'll start with you, Meg. What sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics? And then we'll go to you, Jon.
Gymnastics.
that was a little too quick.
That was super fast. That was super easy. I love it. Any particular reason why? Were you a gymnast growing up?
Oh, no, just because I'm not great at weightlifting. So you always, default towards the things that you're better at, right? So I need to do more weightlifting, but I'd like to do more gymnastics.
Love it. Love it. What about you, Jon?
Weightlifting.
Oh,
All right. Well,
all
that's
right, all right.
we're they canceling each other out. That's good for me at
Yeah,
least.
wait,
Probably
wait,
feel
wait.
bad
I
after
need to
Meg's
get better
answer.
I need to get better at gymnastics. So I definitely need to improve in that, but weightlifting.
All right, so
John's
watch, Dad.
John's the fitter one of the two. John is an animal, so
But
yeah.
But on a side note, I just want to give Meg the props because, you know, she was at my level 1 and she gave me some coaching development. So everything that I do as a coach and the way that I coach classes and, you know, all that kind of stuff is directly related to Meg and her hard work that she's, you know, put into a lot of the coaches there. So she's the reason why I do my coaching and all that. So thanks, Meg.
Did you meet her at the L1? Did you know her?
Yeah. Well, I think she had just started, and so when she was there at the it was in Boston. I think that you were getting ready to come on board, or it wasn't kind of. I think it was like wasn't known yet, but I knew, and so it was kind of like a. But it was good. I passed my L1, and she gave me some good coaches development, and that's why I'm the coach I am today.
Yeah, it's been cool to see that progression of, like, you know, having people come to the level 1 and then, you know, John now going out to develop a bunch of other coaches, and those coaches hopefully, you know, developing other coaches, and it just like continue with that cycle and helping others. So it's been amazing.
Great to hear. Couple quick additional questions. One, any guests that you think would be great to have on the podcast? Anybody that comes to mind?
Doesn't have to be fitness related.
Yep.
Well, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if you guys haven't heard of Redemption Road CrossFit, these 2 inmates started it inside the Colorado State Prison, and it's like,
oh wow,
amazing work. And I mean, just the level of, you know, how they built this program out and expanded into Colorado and stuff like that, and like their passion for, you know, CrossFit and just becoming better individuals while they, you know, because they're never going to get out, you know, and so they really have came up with something pretty.
So it's called Redemption Road CrossFit.
Yeah, Redemption Road. I mean, that comes to mind as far as like something that's unique. Definitely would be something that comes to mind. How about you, Meg?
That's a great one, just because it kind of goes back with the education around what we're doing at Phoenix. It's, you know, John's scope of knowledge is the criminal justice space. So being able to talk to folks and have people that are in that space speak about it and educate more people that actually don't know what goes on in that space and the opportunities that there are for folks in the criminal justice space. We had the opportunity to shoot some on-demand videos that are on some tablets that are in prisons across the country. John was actually one of the ones that was one of the instructors. So it's been cool to learn about that. I mean, if you ever want to have anybody else on from the Phoenix, if we can ever get our founder on, Scott Strode, he's just, I mean, just an amazing speaker and an incredible person, and obviously has a powerful story in itself. So he's always a great one to listen to.
Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that CrossFit sounds amazing. Would it be possible to talk to those guys, John?
Yeah, they have a way that they can set up some video calls like that. I can make an introduction. Nice. So that's
amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. And I think Jordan's listening in right now. So there you go. Well, last couple questions here. Any books that either of you have come across recently that you think would be good for our listeners?
Mindset by, I think it's Carol or Carl Dweck. It's a pretty good one that I'm reading right now.
Okay.
I would say one that I just recently read is Essentialism. I don't know if you all are familiar with that one, but it just kind of talks about how to prioritize things in your life and what's really important and what are the things that you can kind of push to the outside versus trying to focus on everything at one time.
I love that. We all need to hear as much of that as we possibly can, right? Daily, I got to remind myself of that
every day,
every day, multiple times a day. That's for sure. Well, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on to get to know you both a little bit more. Is there anything else that you guys want to share with the listeners, or just about the Phoenix or yourself in general before we get off here? Any parting words?
I just want to
Jon,
thank
you
you for
have
the
anything?
opportunity to have us on here and share more about the Phoenix. And again, congrats getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, Chad.
Thank you very much.
And
Yeah, thank
thanks,
you so
Dave,
much for
an
having us
opportunity.
on. This is just, so great for us because we get to spread the word to more people. So we're super grateful for any opportunities like these, and connect with more people in the CrossFit community. Always great. So really appreciate you all.
Absolutely. And anyone out there that wants to learn more about the Phoenix, or get involved or get help, just one more time, since we're at the end, can you give the website and the Instagram handle?
Yep. So the website is thephoenix.org, and then our Instagram is @RiseRecoverLive. And then if you go to the website, you can find, we also have the CrossFitCommunityCenter.com if you want to learn more about that. So everything is accessible from the website. Pretty easy to use too.
Awesome.
This podcast is brought to you by Power Monkey Camp. Now, Chad, both you and I have been part of Power Monkey Camp since its inception, almost 10 years ago, coming up on our 9th year. And this one is going to be Power Monkey Camp 17, the first week of May 1st through the 7th. What are you excited about?
Oh man, I'm just excited to be back there in Tennessee on the grounds of Flip Fest, and it's always an incredible week, an incredible experience. As many times as I've been there, I think this is going to be the 17th time, of course. I always learn something. I always get something from it. I always grow, and we hear that same thing from all the campers. And I just look forward to being back.
I couldn't agree more. And I think sometimes people get the impression that camp is predominantly for the elite athlete. They see these crazy games athletes being at camp. And the reality of the situation is that camp is for the everyday athlete, the beginners, the intermediates, the people that have never been inverted before or scared to put a barbell over their head. We want people from all different backgrounds to feel like camp is for them. So please don't be intimidated. If you are an athlete at all, you have a body, you're looking to become better at these specific movements that we target, camp is for you. Come check it out. The early bird special just ended, but we do have some great prices that are going along through for camp that's coming up in the spring. Power Monkey Camp 17 can be found at powermonkeycamp.com. You'll see our coaches. You'll see a daily schedule. You'll see what the food is like. It's a really all-encompassing great situation. If you're into fitness and are looking for a little bit of an adventure to go along with it, Power Monkey Camp is for you.
Absolutely. Come see us, guys. And well, to our listeners, as always, we very much appreciate you guys listening in. Go check out and learn more about the Phoenix if you're interested or if you need it. Also, guys, be sure to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also, check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.